The mountain had a way of silencing the world, and Elias Crow liked it that way. For 10 years, the wind, the trees, and the creak of his cabin had been the only voices he trusted. At dawn, the peaks glowed pale gold, and by nightfall, the cold wrapped everything in a quiet so deep it felt holy. Elias lived alone, not because he hated people, but because life had taught him what closeness could cost. Up here, nothing asked him who he was or what he'd lost. The mountain accepted him without questions. That morning, the snow was light but sharp, biting through the air as Elias chopped wood outside his cabin. His beard was streaked with gray, his hands scarred from years of work and solitude. He moved with the steady rhythm of a man who had survived by routine alone. Every strike of the axe echoed into the trees, then vanished like it had never existed. He was halfway through the pile when he noticed footprints, small, uneven, and wrong. No one came this far up the mountain. No one who wanted to live. Elias froze. The wind carried something unfamiliar. Movement. Breath. A presence that did not belong to the mountain. He followed the tracks cautiously, rifle slung over his shoulder more out of habit than fear. 50 yards from his cabin near the edge of the frozen creek, he saw her. She looked like a shadow that had forgotten how to disappear. The woman stood hunched, wrapped in a torn coat far too thin for the altitude. Her hair was tangled, dark strands streaked with frost. Her boots didn't match, and one sole was peeling away. She looked small against the vast white wilderness, like the mountain might swallow her at any moment. When she noticed Elias, she flinched, hands rising slowly, not in surrender but in shame. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cracked from cold and hunger. I didn't mean to trespass. Elias didn't answer right away. He had learned that silence made people reveal more than words. She shivered violently, teeth chattering, her eyes darting between him and the cabin behind him. Those eyes held something he recognized too well, resignation. Not fear of death, but acceptance of it. You'll freeze out here, he said finally. She nodded as if she already knew. I know. Why'd you come this far up, he asked. She swallowed hard. Because nowhere else wanted me. The words hit harder than the cold. Elias had said something similar once long ago, though never out loud. He studied her closer now. Dirt under her nails, bruises on her wrist, old and yellowing, a face that had once been kind, softened by suffering but not broken by it. She looked like someone who had been invisible for a very long time. I don't have money, she said quickly as if reading his thoughts. I won't steal, I just needed somewhere to rest. Elias exhaled slowly. The mountain taught him caution, but it also punished cruelty. He turned toward the cabin. Come inside, he said gruffly. Her eyes widened. Sir, You'll die if you don't, he interrupted. Decision's yours. She followed, limping slightly, each step uncertain like she expected the offer to vanish. Inside the cabin, warmth wrapped around her instantly. The fire crackled. The scent of pine and iron filled the air. She stood near the door, afraid to touch anything. Like kindness was a trap she didn't know how to escape. Elias poured water into a kettle and handed her a blanket. She clutched it like a lifeline, sinking onto a chair with a shaky breath. Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought them back. My name's Mara, she said quietly. Elias. They sat in silence while the kettle heated. Finally, she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm not worth much, sir, but I can cook. The sentence broke something open in him. Not worth much. He'd felt that weight before, measured by usefulness, by what you could give instead of who you were. He looked at her, really looked, and saw a person who had been taught to apologize for existing. You don't have to earn warmth, he said. She shook her head gently. People don't give things for free. I learned that. Elias handed her a bowl of soup. She ate like someone afraid the food might disappear, savoring every spoonful. Color slowly returned to her face. Afterward, she stood and glanced at the small kitchen. If it's okay, I could make something better. For you. To say thank you. He hesitated, then nodded. What he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that this simple offer would unravel two broken pasts and build something neither believed they deserved. And if you're feeling the weight of loneliness, of being unseen, subscribe to this channel, because stories like this remind us that even in the coldest places, kindness still finds a way. Mara moved through the small kitchen like someone stepping into a forgotten memory. Her hands still trembling from cold but guided by instinct older than fear. Elias watched from his chair near the fire, saying nothing, unsure why he trusted this stranger, in his space when he had spent a decade, keeping the world locked out. She asked for permission with her eyes before touching anything, and every time he nodded, a little of the tightness in her shoulders eased. She found a sack of potatoes, a jar of dried herbs, a slab of venison he'd hunted weeks earlier. It wasn't much, but to her it was possibility. As she worked, the cabin slowly filled, with a scent Elias hadn't known he missed, the smell of food made with care rather than necessity. It stirred something buried deep, something that belonged to another life. Before the mountain, before the silence. Mara hummed softly as she cooked, not a song with words, just a fragile melody that rose and fell like a breath, trying to remember how to be calm. When she set the plate in front of him, her hands shook again. "I hope it's okay," she said. "I haven't cooked properly in a long time." Elias took the first bite and froze. It wasn't just good, it was grounding. The kind of meal that didn't shout for praise but settled into you, reminding your body that it was safe, that it could rest. He swallowed slowly, his throat tight. "It's very good," he said, and for the first time since she arrived, Mara smiled. Not wide, not confident, but real. That smile cracked the last wall Elias hadn't realized he was still guarding. They ate in silence, but it was a different kind now, not heavy or defensive. Afterward, Mara began washing the dishes without being asked. Her movements careful, deliberate. Elias finally spoke. "You don't have to stay," he said, though the words surprised even him. "But the storm's coming tonight. You can sleep by the fire." She turned, eyes filling with tears she no longer tried to hide. "Thank you," she whispered. "I promise I won't be trouble." He nodded, understanding too well what it meant to feel like your existence was a burden. That night, the wind howled against the cabin like a living thing. Snow slammed against the windows, thick and relentless. Mara lay on the blanket near the fire, staring at the ceiling, afraid to close her eyes in case this warmth vanished like a dream. Elias sat at the table, cleaning his rifle, though his thoughts were far from danger. He found himself listening to her breathing, steady now, alive. "Mara," he said quietly. She turned her head. "You don't have to explain anything," he added, "but if you want to, I'll listen." The words felt strange on his tongue, like a language he hadn't spoken in years. She hesitated, then spoke, her voice low and fragile. She told him about the diner she once worked at, how cooking had been the one thing that made her feel useful without feeling small. She told him about the husband who drank away their savings, then his temper, then her sense of safety, about the night she ran with nothing but her coat, about shelters that were full, streets that were cruel, and people who looked through her like she was already gone. "After a while," she said, staring into the fire, "you stop believing you're meant to be saved." Elias felt each word settle into his chest like a stone. When she finished, he didn't offer advice or pity. He simply said, "You're still here." She nodded, tears sliding down her temples. "So are you," she replied gently, and the truth of that nearly broke him. Days turned into weeks. The storm passed, but Mara didn't leave. She cooked. She cleaned. She repaired things Elias hadn't bothered fixing in years. In return, he taught her how to split wood, how to read the weather, how to move through the mountain without fighting it. Slowly, the cabin changed. It felt less like a shelter and more like a home. Elias laughed once, actually laughed, and froze afterward, shocked by the sound of it. Mara noticed and smiled but said nothing. Healing, Elias learned, was quiet. It didn't announce itself. It arrived in moments you almost missed. One evening, as the sun bled orange across the snow, Mara handed Elias a piece of paper. On it were handwritten recipes, careful and precise. "I was thinking," she said nervously, "maybe someday I could cook for people again. If I ever leave." Elias looked at her for a long moment. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "The mountain doesn't rush anyone." She exhaled, relief washing over her face. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a threat. Spring came slowly, stubbornly. The snow retreated. Wildflowers pushed through the thawing earth. One morning, a pair of hikers appeared near the creek, lost and exhausted. Before Elias could speak, Mara was already ladling stew into bowls, her voice confident, warm. Elias watched from the doorway, pride blooming quietly in his chest. She wasn't not worth much, she never had been. She was nourishment. She was resilience. She was proof that broken things could still feed the world. As the hikers left, thanking them profusely, Mara turned to Elias. "I think," she said softly, "I'm ready to go down the mountain soon. Not because I have to, But because I want to. Elias nodded, though his chest ached. You'll always have a place here, he said. She smiled. I know. And on the morning she finally left, she hugged him, tight, grateful, human. Elias stood on the porch long after she disappeared down the trail. The cabin quiet, but no longer empty. Inside, the fire still burned. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the smallest kindness can change a life, subscribe to this channel. Because stories like these aren't just fiction. They're reminders that hope can survive anywhere, even on the coldest mountain, waiting for someone brave enough to offer warmth.